And so we wind up in a trap that we have designed ourselves. We built this plan on a Sunday when we're feeling super well rested and we're feeling productive and there's nothing else going on. And it works great for 1 week. And then reality hits. Your kid gets sick, your car breaks down, you're just feeling a little under the weather, or you didn't sleep well. You've got a client who is melting down at you and you're dealing with a crisis. And the last thing that you can think about is sitting down and following that plan. You're listening to the Bold Women in Business podcast, the show for women who are building something that actually matters and who are ready to stop hiding behind the polished and perfect and start showing up as their bold, magnetic, human AF selves. I'm Rachel Honeyman, your guide to finding your true magic and putting it front and center in your brand. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. So I'm a pretty terrible plant mom, like really, really bad. I know I have plants around me. This one's fake. The one behind me thrives on neglect. If you have a black thumb like I do, get snake plants because they will not die ever. This plant, I don't know. I rarely water it and it just keeps growing and shooting up, and eventually it's probably going to hit the ceiling and I'm going to have to move it, and it's a whole thing. But despite knowing that I am a really bad plant mom, I love having plants. I love a house that is filled with plants. And so I just keep buying them and putting them around my house, and a lot of them wind up dying. I have a couple of graveyard pots right now that need to be dealt with. But I do have a lot of plants in my house. In my living room, I've got these hanging plants in the window and I love it. It's so beautiful. It just adds so much character to the house and it just brightens things up, and I love it. But I'm terrible at actually watering them when they need to be watered, keeping up any sort of schedule. I know you're supposed to feed plants and I never do that. I don't even totally know what it means. I think you're just supposed to give them new soil occasionally. I don't know. Really, I have no business owning plants, but I love having plants. So I keep buying them, and I actually have a bunch of plants that have been living for a good amount of time. Last week, I was looking at my plants and realized I have no idea the last time I watered these plants. And they're just going to die. Eventually, plants die if you don't water them. So I went and filled up my watering can and I watered all my plants and figured okay, I'm just going to pray and hope for the best and maybe they'll come back to life. They were already looking not great by this point. There are a lot of dead leaves. They're drying out for sure. The next morning, I was sitting on the couch and looked up at my plants and saw that almost all of them had new growth coming out of them. And it was the tiniest little bit of nurturing brought them to life and helped them grow and gave them just what they needed to sprout new life. And what I realized was this was not some miracle, obviously. It's just that I have gotten pretty good about only buying plants, for the most part, that don't need a ton of nurturing. They're gonna survive kind of whatever I do. Yes, eventually they're gonna die if I never water them, but I could go several weeks without watering them. They're gonna start looking a little sad, but they just need a little water and then they're gonna come back to life. And your marketing should work the same way. It should. It should be something that you don't need to be constantly stressing about. It kind of works for you. It's something that you need to nurture here and there, but it shouldn't be something that you are constantly stressing about or having to nurture or water every single day. It should be something that you can show up for and nurture periodically, but for the most part runs like a machine and it runs for you. And if that's not happening, it probably just means that you are buying the wrong plants, that you're following the wrong plan for your content marketing. You're trying to follow a plan that is never going to work for you if you're a terrible plant mama. Like, it's just not going to work for you. You have to know yourself. You have to know what is going to work for you. So I want to talk about consistency. And I know you're probably tired of hearing me talk about this by now. I talk about consistency all the time, but it's because people get consistency wrong all the time. They think that it means showing up every day or posting a certain number of times per week or being on all the platforms, right? They think that it means a certain thing and it doesn't mean those things at all. And then they fall into this all or nothing trap. They think like, I'm either showing up or I'm not showing up. And there's nothing in between. And I just want to say, like, I am victim to that same mindset. I have a tendency to be pretty all or nothing in a lot of areas of my life because that's a very, very common challenge for the type A perfectionist personality that many, many entrepreneurs and many female entrepreneurs find themselves in. It's super common to have this like all or nothing mentality, this black or white mentality where you feel like it's either this or it's that. And so I am saying all this with the full acknowledgement that I struggle with this too. I have learned how to struggle with it a lot less with my content, with my marketing, because I've found systems that work for me and I found a different approach that works for me. And you have to find approaches that work for you and your brain. When we take a very all or nothing approach to our content, we fall into this cycle that is probably going to sound so familiar, right? You decide that you're going to get really consistent with your content. And so you're like, okay, every Sunday, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to map up my content for the whole week and it's going to be great. And I'm going to have content that is on all the platforms and I'm going to do all the things. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to batch my content and get it all done. And I'm going to just keep that up. And all I have to do is get out of my own way. And I hear this a lot. People just say like, well, I just have to do it. I just have to get out of my own way and I just have to do it. And they put this self-blame on themselves. They think that they are the problem with like why they haven't been able to be consistent until now. They're like, well, I just don't have the self-discipline. I just lack willpower. And I just have to like get over that and just have the willpower all of a sudden. I'm like, it doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't work that way. If you're following a plan that demands that you show up in this full-fledged way every week or every day or every month or whatever, however you've decided to do this, if you're following a plan that demands full attention all the time, it's going to fail. And it's not about you. Like, there's almost no one who can keep that up. Almost no one. And the people that you look at who are following those types of plans usually have help. They usually have someone helping them behind the scenes. And if you are listening to this and you're a solopreneur, maybe you have a VA who helps you a little bit with your content. Maybe you have a little bit of support. But for the most part, you're doing this yourself and you're figuring it out yourself. So the plan that you're following is fully dependent on what else is going on in your life and your business. So if you're going through a really stressful period in your life or your business is really busy right now, which is great. I hope your business is really busy all the time. Or whatever it might be, you have other things going on in your life. And when you have other things going on in your life and you have different weeks where you're going to feel different. For many women, there's a need to adjust how they're showing up in their business and in their marketing based on their cycle because we don't feel the same week to week. We feel different and we can't show up the same way when we're in one phase of our cycle versus another. It's going to change and adjust, and we need to be able to roll with the punches. And so we wind up in a trap that we have designed ourselves. We built this plan on a Sunday when we're feeling super well rested and we're feeling productive and there's nothing else going on. And it works great for 1 week. And then reality hits. Your kid gets sick, your car breaks down, you're just feeling a little under the weather, or you didn't sleep well. You've got a client who is melting down at you and you're dealing with a crisis. And the last thing that you can think about is sitting down and following that plan. It feels impossible. And what you did is you built that plant that needs constant nurturing. You brought that plant into your house and you said, I'm going to be a different person. I'm going to be a different person than I am at my core. This time, I'm going to be a great plant mom. And you're not. You're just not. And that's okay. That's okay. But you have to know who you are. You have to be buying the plants that are going to survive. They're just super resilient and they're going to survive. And it's okay if you miss a day or two or a week or whatever it might be. You're still going to survive. Your marketing is still going to survive because you've nurtured it enough and you've nurtured it in the right ways and you're showing up in the right ways. It's not going to all fall apart when you miss a Wednesday or you have a whole week where you can't post something. And I have been in this trap so many times, thankfully not for a long time, but I have been in this trap where I've just ghosted my audience for months at a time. And it didn't go well. It did not go well. But the reason I ghosted them was because I had set up a plan that didn't account for the ebbs and flows of my life and my business. And I had built this plan that is essentially that plant that needs to be constantly nurtured, and that's always going to fall apart. And so what you really need is you need something that can adjust up and down, that can work with who you are at your core, and that makes it so that you always know what the plan is. You're not sitting down and guessing every time you sit down. My plants that I finally watered and they grew new leaves, it wasn't because like all of a sudden I did the right thing. Yes, I did. Because I watered them finally. But it's not because like I suddenly became an amazing plant mom. I'm probably not going to water them again for a while because that's just the reality. That's who I am. But they just are the right types of plants that just need a little nurturing. They just need that little bit of nurturing every once in a while, and they're going to grow. They want to grow. That's what they want to do. So the first part of this that I want you to take away, which I've kind of hammered this point home already, but I'm just going to say it again because it's so crucial, is that you need to have a plan that works around who you are and is built around your brain and your life. And if it doesn't account for the ebbs and flows of your life and the natural things that are going to happen, it's going to fail. It's going to fail, period. I help clients with this in two ways. One is I have clients who come through my Bold Content Collective program. The next cohort is going to be launching in October. So if you're interested, get on the wait list. And that's a big part of what we do in the program is we build out a strategy that is going to work for you. And everyone who goes through the program comes out with a plan that looks a little different because they all have different lives. Their brains all work differently. They have different things that feel good to them. And they have to have a plan that is able to adjust to what their needs are at any given time. It's not going to stay the same forever either. The second way is that I work with clients one-on-one, and I have clients who come to me for a strategy and a plan. I build them out a 3-month strategy and plan, and then they go and implement it. But the strategy and plan is built in such a way that it can adjust, and it's built around them. And I do a deep dive into understanding how they work best, what types of content feel good to them, all of that. I dig into how can we build a plan that is going to be actually doable for this person in front of me. So those are two ways that I help clients with this. But regardless of whether you work with me or not, the important thing is that you have a plan that is not some cookie cutter templated plan. It's not just something that you go to ChatGPT and say like, make me a plan, because that's going to be generic. By definition, it's going to be generic. You need something that is built around you and your brain and your life. period. The second thing that I want to talk about, which is actually something that I haven't talked about a ton, because I talk a lot about like the ongoing, social media and email marketing and those pieces of your marketing that do need to be kind of nurtured in an ongoing fashion. Like I said, they need to be adjustable. It needs to be mostly working as a machine, but it does need kind of that more regular nurturing. There's another type of content that I haven't talked about as much that I think is really, really important to highlight, which is content that has a longer shelf life. Social media content and email marketing, by definition, are things that kind of live for a day, maybe two, like they don't have a long shelf life. Sometimes the algorithm updates and all of a sudden we're seeing things in our feeds for longer. Great. But for the most part, it is content that has a really short shelf life. It's very valuable. That is really, really important content because it keeps your audience engaged over time. It's really, really, really important. But content that has a longer shelf life is super important as well. And having a content ecosystem that includes both and has both working together is where the magic happens. So content that has a longer shelf life would include things like blog posts that live on your website that people can find forever. Like that's content that lives forever. It's not limited by a certain timeline or, a certain period of time as long as it shows up in their feeds. No, it lives forever. People can find blog posts that you wrote 3 years ago that are on your website. YouTube videos are the same thing. A podcast is the same thing. These kinds of content that people can find and look back on, and they might find it through their LLMs, their AI tools. They might find it through Google. They might find it just by going on Spotify and finding your content, your podcast. But that content really lives forever. It's not going to just be up for 1 day or 2 days and then people don't see it again. This is honestly one of the reasons why I think that people still need websites. This is a question I get asked a lot, and this is a little off topic for today's conversation, but I think it's an important point. People ask me a lot, like, do people need websites anymore? Because so many service providers use their Instagram page, for example, as essentially their landing page for like, this is what I do, this is who I work with, this is what I offer. And you can build a business just on social media alone. You can. People do it. But that content has a shelf life, and it is not a very long shelf life. And having a website, first of all, is a trust builder. So if someone finds you on Instagram and they see your services, they're going to go and try to find your website. They're going to go and try to get a better understanding of the full picture of who you are and what you offer. They're going to want to see your prices. They're going to want to see all the different ways to work with you. And if they don't see that, it's going to shave away, maybe not fully do away with, but it's going to shave away a little bit of your credibility, a little bit of the trust that you have the potential to build with your clients. But the other reason to have a website is that it's content that lives forever. It's content that builds this longer term relationship with people who are scoping you out, right? It also allows you to show up in AI tools and in Google. That's not happening as much on Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever. That content does show up more in Google than it used to, but it's still not the best way to build that credibility, that trust with Google and AI tools. But you also have the content on your website that, again, lives forever. You have all the content on the pages themselves, and then your website also can host a blog or some other way to have content that lives forever, that has that longer shelf life, that just continues to nurture over time in the background. The last thing I want to leave you with is that when we find ourselves in this cycle where we have all these very ambitious goals and we fill our house full of plants that are going to need constant nurturing, and then we inevitably fall off and we forget to water them for weeks at a time and they start dying, right? Because that's what they're going to do. When we show back up and we come over with the watering can, we don't have to apologize to the plants. We don't have to, feel bad about it. We just have to recognize we didn't buy the right plants, right? We just didn't buy the right plants. And when you have the right plants, you need to give it a little water and it's going to come back to life. And you don't need to apologize. You don't need to over-explain. You don't need to tell your audience why you fell off the bandwagon. You have to realize that the plan that you set for your content is something that nobody knows except for you. Even if sometimes I see people post kind of like an accountability post, right? Or a story or something. And they say, here's what I'm committing to. Here's what I'm committing to do with my content. Do you think anyone remembers? Do you think anyone remembers that you shared that plan? Nobody is thinking about the plan that you promised other than you. Nobody is going to notice if you modify that plan a little bit. They're just not going to notice. So it's really important that when you look up at your plants and you realize that you haven't watered them in a while, just go and get the water can and give it a little water. And that's it. That's all you need to do. Just show up a little bit more and it's all good. One thing that I have been doing with my content is I have built out a high, medium, and low output plan. And that is allowing me to show up so much more consistently because I have some weeks where I'm like, yeah, high output. I can do everything. I can do it all. I can knock out a bunch of content and show up in all the ways and do all the things. And I feel great. And then I have some weeks where it's really low output, where I just know I'm super stretched thin and I don't have the bandwidth and I just can't be stressing about my content. I just can't do it. And on those weeks, I do the very bare minimum. So I have a few things that are non-negotiables for me. I have my podcast goes out every Sunday. My email to my list goes out every Monday morning. I recently started a LinkedIn newsletter. I know I've talked before about how I wasn't going to start a LinkedIn newsletter until I knew that I could be consistent with it. Well, now I feel really confident that I can be consistent with it. So I've started a LinkedIn newsletter. It is going out every Wednesday. Those are the 3 non-negotiables. Everything else works around that plan. So I'm going to show up on Instagram and LinkedIn when I can and how I can. And I'm going to do my best on those weeks. And then I have medium output weeks where it's somewhere in between. I'm not at my most productive, but I'm also not at my least productive. I'm somewhere in between. I can show up in pretty consistent ways, but I don't have full capacity. I think that can be really, really powerful, is having that plan of how do I adjust up and down? How do I account for my real life? And I don't have to explain to my audience when I'm showing up less or more. I can just do it. And they're not going to notice if I've done it more or less. So I'll leave you with this. If you have been looking up at your windowsill and looking at your plants and saying, I haven't watered them in a while, and you're feeling guilty or you're feeling like a failure or you're just beating yourself up for being a bad plant mom, right? I'll just bring that metaphor back again. You're looking at your content and you're saying, I haven't posted in so long. And how am I going to show up again? How am I going to do it? And I don't know how to stay consistent. I don't know how I'm going to ever be consistent with emailing my list or with showing up on Instagram or posting on my blog or whatever it might be. It's okay. I want you to understand that it's not you. You're not the problem. It's the plan that you're following. The plan that you're following is not accounting for your real life, the way your brain works, the things going on in your life and your business and all of that. It's just not adjustable and personalized enough. And when it's not adjustable and personalized enough, when you're following a template, when you're following someone else's plan, it's just not going to work. And you can always water the plant. You can always come back. You can always nurture your marketing again. It's always there for you. And I'm here to support you however I can. So if this resonated, reach out. I would love to have a chat and see how I can help. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week. All right, beautiful human. That's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. This episode was brought to you by my company, Honey Be Bold, with music by Shmukalele and production by Podium Studios. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend, hit subscribe, and don't forget to rate and review us. It really helps us grow and means the world. See you next time.